Sachin, welcome to those casts. It's a delight. I don't often interview British citizens, so you're a first. The last time I interviewed someone was an OnlyFans star from the UK.
This will be a very different conversation, I can promise you. Thank you.
And also a gentleman who works in the psychedelic space. But you have written a book on Headgiver, right? And I have met my fair share of people who work for the RSS, who work in the RSS, and I've met my fair share of friends who are sent to write in India and generally espouse like a Hindu worldview. But I did not know about this gentleman, right? And I see there is a resurgence of like revisionist historians or people who sort of unearth certain figures that most Indians across the world, most Hindus across the world should know about, right? One of them being Vikram Sampath, who wrote the book on Savarkar, and many others. I did not know much about this gentleman until I got in contact with you. Who was Headgiver, and what is his role in the long history of functionaries and leaders of the RSS?
Firstly, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been on a bit of a whirlwind tour of India, getting ready for the launch of this book. So, Headgivar, you're absolutely correct. And one of the reasons why I became intrigued in doing this project, I mean, this book took 7 years to research and write. And, it took me into archives in the British Library, also in Paris, also in Delhi, and also in Nagpur, where the RSS is headquartered, right, or was headquartered. And what led me to all of this was that, everybody in India, it seems, has an opinion on the RSS, right? Good, bad, ugly, whatever. But when you scratch those opinions, when I scratched those opinions, it came to me that very few people knew anything really substantial about its history, its early history, and about its founder. Yeah. And to me, I think it was somewhat perplexing of how can people have such strong views about something that of which they know very little in terms of its history and its founding father, if I can put it that way. So that got me curious. And then I noticed that it seemed like the RSS is woven, I would say, into the fabric of Indian life. I couldn't go very far in India, in any urban center, without bumping into something to do with the RSS, the Sangh. And so these things led me sort of further down the rabbit hole, as they say, right?
If you liked the episode, please leave your key takeaways in the comments. It helps us decide future episodes. And of course, make sure you follow Those Casts on Spotify. Those Casts to the moon.
And so what Headgivar, this book tries to show, is the mind and the circumstances in which this mind developed its ideas, right? So there are books out there on Headgivar, predominantly written by RSS volunteers, workers, some of their most distinguished pracharaks, right? But these books are often written in a particular time, in a particular frame, with a particular angle in mind, and they are what I would consider as hagiographies. They're window dressing, right? They don't really tackle the tough questions about the man, his motives, the circumstances in which he grew. And so those books left me really, can I say, parched, right? To know more. And then I started to read the Indian academics, right? So Christoph Jeffrelow's Hindu nationalism was kind of my topographical map in discovering all of this. But what I discovered about academics was that although they had a lot of commentary, and there's tons of books written on the RSS, there's hardly anything on Headgivar, right? Hardly anything. And then number two, I found that a lot of the comments were coming often from the same circular sources within that ecosystem. And so after a while, as I started to trawl through the tons of literature on this stuff, I began to realize that I'm seeing the same quotes being regurgitated. And that tells me something. It tells me one thing is that none of these academics had primary material or scanty primary material. They may have had some. And number two is because of that dearth of primary material, they're just busy quoting each other. That creates an echo chamber, right? And so I felt that that wasn't either serving my purpose, which is trying to decipher who is this man? How on earth did he come out with this movement that 100 years on is not just woven itself invisibly into Indian society, every nook and cranny of Indian life, but it seems to be growing not just in India, but around the world. So that's a phenomenal thing. And so that got me very curious because I am as a diasporic Indian, third generation out, raised in the UK. In order for me to connect with India, it just dawns on me that you cannot understand modern India unless you understand the RSS. You cannot understand the RSS unless you tackle Hedgewar and the Hedgewarian mind. So this book, I hope, is a window and a doorway into discovering his mind and the world in which that mind developed, right? Let me say from the off, this book, even though it took 7 years, there are still lots and lots of question marks that we need to answer, which the book maybe takes you down, but may not give you a conclusive answer. Because there is still a lot of material out there that hasn't been translated, that hasn't been reviewed or analyzed. And so I hope that this is the beginning of a conversation and not the end in terms of the book.
Sure. If you love this episode, make sure you leave a note at the end so we know what more to make of. And of course, follow Those Cast on Spotify, Those Cast to the Moon.